the panel, and we'll be happy to engage any questions that you have. And hopefully you're going to get a copy of this presentation. We've included some of our resources that we have available to you. And certainly, I want to say thank you again to Cola for inviting me, and thank you to all of you for listening to my session. And I look forward to engaging with you in the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Barry Nixon, for the very brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. It's really nice having you here. Okay, I think we can take one or two questions before we move to the panel session. Please, you can raise your hand or just share your question on the chat, in the chat room. All right, that person is going to another meeting. All right. All right, does anybody have a question for Barry? Oh, okay, let's do it this way. Barry is still going to join the panel session. Maybe you want to join him and ask the question then.
I have a question.
Oh, all right. Okay, so quickly roll it on.
My question is as to the infringement issues of the fundamental rights of potential employees that arise in the process of background check. For me, it is quite clear that checking on the background of a potential employee without his consent oftentimes could constitute an infringement of his fundamental rights. How do we navigate that in the process of background check? That's my question.
All right, Barry, I think you should.
Yeah, let me take a stab at it, Cola, and then you can add into it. And that's an excellent question, because one of the very pervasive issues now worldwide is the issue of privacy and invasion of privacy, which you certainly are speaking to. And so background checking, before a background check company starts to dig into a person's background, they must get that person's consent. And that consent should be in writing so that they consent and understand that the company is going to be doing a background check. And so the employer has to get that person's consent before the background screening company will start to really get into their background. And this is true for all forms of background checking, that an explicit consent is required to avoid exactly what you're talking about, is checking into someone's background without them really knowing or agreeing to that actually happening. So Cola, I'll let you add to that.
All right, I actually think you've handled it. Even over here in Nigeria, for us to run background check on any individual, the person must give us a written consent. Background check is not a covert investigation that the person you're checking need not know that you're running a background check on him. We are only verifying the claims that he had made. So we normally get written consent from everyone that we run background check on. So that's the way we don't infringe on their fundamental human rights. Thank you. Let's take just one more question, Barry, and then we move to the panel session. It says,
good afternoon.
All right, Mr. Falola, I think
how are you?
Thank
you for the useful presentation from Barry.
Okay.
It's very highly educative. Now, my question is, how do you handle a situation where a company refuses to give you a feedback on the reference of a particular candidate you are trying to run a background check on, claiming that it is their principle or policy not to entertain such a request? How would somebody handle that to a client? And the client wants a written document from such previous employer, and you are not giving, but you are giving a verbal instruction. How will you handle such a thing?
Yeah, Kola, I'm going to let you handle that one.
All right. All right, Mr. Falola, you
Yes.
requested for maybe a reference on someone from an organization,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they said, no, we don't give any written document. We only do
Yes.
for verbal.
Yes.
In some parts of the country, of the world, verbal information is as good as the written thing. I can tell you that in some organizations, the way references are done is over the phone. They will call and ask, do you know this person? Did they work with you? For how long did they work? And the check is done. So what you only need to do is make sure you get the particulars of the person that responded to you, the name, his designation, and things like that. So your report is made that you interviewed so person, maybe the head of HR, and this was what the person said. And of course, remember to write it in your report that you could not get a written document because the company says it's against their own policy. So that's the way you handle that. All right. Thank you so much, Barry.
Sorry, Mr. Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Sometimes you face challenges with some clients that will say, no, I'm not going to pay you for this scope. If you can't get the written document, I am not taking a further information from you. And which, of course, it could become an issue later. This is not documented. And you are faced with this type of challenges. How do you? It's still very, very challenging to me in some companies.
Can I respond to that?
Please quickly do that so that we can move.
Okay. I think one of the, like Mr. Kola said, one of the things you might likely need to do ahead is to communicate officially through email, not only letter. Email is as good as any correspondence because they carry the identity of the responder and everything you need. So I think we do that a lot because some companies will tell you that they won't write officially. So some individuals are even moved from certain company and they will say they work with a certain person as the last time. So when we get email, that's as good as a letter for me. I think that works.
So exactly.
Sorry, doctor. We've done email.
Sorry, Mr. Falola.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Falola, sorry.
Yes, sir.
We need to move to the next session now because it's timed. Sorry, you can ask me that question personally and I promise you would trash it. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Falola. I really appreciate it. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been really nice having you around. We quickly move to the panel session now. And I will hand over to Rufai Hussaini, who is going to be our moderator for the panel session. Rufai, over to you, please. You can unmute and let's see your video.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm more than excited being here, and thank you so much for the honor. And it's been very exciting conversation thus far. So we'll go to a quick panel session where we get to talk about, very pertinent issues around background check, and we have a very amiable panelist. So I'll just go through their details right about now and just reel out their names, and we'll take it up from there. So on this panel session, we'll have Yemi Fashion, is the head human resource at Globalcom. We have Mary Koku, editor-in-chief, Working Moms Africa magazine. Pleasure to have you. Please, a big round of applause to them if you can. We have Kumbi Adeoti, divisional director, HR lead with Assurance Company Limited. And we have Mr. Kola Olubodi, chief executive of Background Check International. It's a pleasure to have all of you here with us to talk about these pertinent issues. I mean, good to see you again, Mary. It's a pleasure seeing you again. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to really channel this conversation towards three angles. Number one will be, due diligence as regards background check. And some copious issue was raised earlier on as regards, the rights of privacy and things like that, and due diligence and all of that. So, I mean, these are very pertinent issues. So I want to ask, I think Mr. Kola Olubodi, you could start first. Challenges around due diligence, around background check. I mean, what has been your experience like? That Mary will take over from there, then we'll have other people come in and just talk about the issue and some of the issue around due diligence before I move on to the next part of it.
All right, thank you so much, Rufai. Some of the challenges that we face and that we have faced in the last 16 years, the biggest one is the issue of database. In most institutions in Nigeria, the higher institutions, NYC, and even some companies, some of them don't have database. They don't keep proper record for schools, maybe of the students that have graduated. And so you make a request for an educational check. And because they don't have an electronic database, that's what I mean, they need to go through piles and piles of files. And this takes, it takes days. Unlike maybe the new generation institutions that have their records online, and those ones you get it in maybe 24 hours. So that's one of the challenges. And in this time and age, we still get some institutions that tell us, oh, we don't have enough tools to produce your request. 5 of us share only one computer. If only you can get extra computers in the exams and record. So over time, we've had to do some donations of computers, of printers to institutions just to make these things work. And then maybe one more thing that we add is the skepticism, although this is gradually fading away. But when we first got started, one of the biggest things we faced is skepticism from references or referees and maybe some previous employers. Once you start asking questions on their subject, the first thing they're asking is, we hope you are not from the police. We hope this guy has not done something wrong. And of course, over time, since we get the consent of personnel that we check. So we try to tell some of them, tell some of your reference that some people may be asking questions about you. They should kindly respond. So with that, we're able to overcome that bottleneck. So by and large, the biggest thing is that because the database, they are not electronic, it keeps affecting our timelines. And then, of course, maybe I should just add this, more especially for higher institutions. Once there's an industrial strike, or maybe the non-teaching staff or ASU is on strike, everything is grounded in some institutions. You get nothing until they are back from their strike. So these are some of the challenges that we face. And of course, it keeps affecting our turnaround time that we have agreed with some of our clients. Thank you, Rufai.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Mary, due diligence is a very important matter, and he has set the ball rolling. I'm talking about Mr. Olubode has set the ball rolling because we live in a country where we virtually do not have data. That's one of the biggest problems. So still trying to get a certain address is a big problem. I mean, what have you faced as regards this? Mary?
Thank you, Rufai. Thank you, Rufai, for that question. It's good you touched on due diligence, really, because at the end of the day, I think Kola has already listed some of those challenges. But another thing that coming from the point of working mothers and in our network and how people do not see the need for due diligence. One of the things that a major challenge really is data, having a credible data that people can look at and say the person that I'm hiring, is he a rapist? Has he had a history of theft and all of those? But when you do not have credible data that you could look up such information, it impedes on the progress of even your due diligence that you want to do as a working mother. And these are some of the things that people in our network also face. And a lot of career moms who go out from their families to go, work to earn a living have some of these challenges. But background BCI comes as a ready partner. And I think I met Kola many years ago, I can't remember, but more than a decade now. And it's been a partnership that has helped in a great way to, cross some of those roadblocks. And another aspect is when you talk about a lot of women or parents rely so much on instinct and intuitions when they're hiring. So it also impedes on the action of having that due diligence. They need to understand that, your instinct that, this person is a nice person, he will be a good house help, he smiles a lot, he loves babies. It doesn't work that way. Parents whose children got kidnapped and been arranged by their house helps, these house help were also people who smiled a lot, who looked very friendly, who loved children, who passed all those marks that a lot of parents have put for themselves. But need to know that there is need for due diligence and there is need for background check of everybody that you bring in to work in your household, because you are putting them in a position of very significant trust. They're going to look after your children while you're away at work. They're going to be the ones driving you to work or anywhere. So you have to be sure that that person hasn't got a history of drunk driving and all of that. So one of the challenges here is also that it's just data. Data is where I want to sum it all up in terms of what hampers the due diligence. Is a major issue. And we also have certain culture that don't think that, think that it's just okay to bring in a relative. You don't care whether this relative have criminal record and all of that. So is your brother, he will not harm your children. No, he can harm your children. A criminal is a criminal. The blood link doesn't most times change the character of the person. So it's also another challenge that we find in terms of that makes people, drop the ball when it comes to having that due diligence. And I think that there's so many others, but just for the lack of time, I would like to give other panelists the opportunity to also contribute to the conversation on due diligence.
Maybe we'll take the next speaker. We'll take Mrs. Adeoti or Miss Adeoti. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Mrs.
Oh, Mrs. Adeoti. Okay.
Hi, Rufai. It's good to see you again. I
My
presume
pleasure.
you, of course, don't recognize me. We've had about 2 or 3 interactions prior to now. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, BCI. Interesting conversations, I must say. Thank you, Mr. Nixon, fantastic presentation from your end. This issue of due diligence, you know, it's for me, it simply has to be done. I have looked, even from what Mary was saying, you know, well, for the home front. Let me pick it from the angle of the organization. And I would pick it to the extent that I've had experiences across about 4 or 5 organizations as at now. And it's always the same. It may not be frequent, but the time that it comes to fall, you will be shocked how this could impact the organization. And in truth, what you're looking out for is the safety of everyone. You as an organization, as an employer, how do that fiduciary responsibility like Nixon mentioned, and how do you keep a safe environment? Because apart from the financial impact, you also don't know who this person is. So I'll give, for an example, 2 or 3 incidents. There has been one who, in terms of due diligence, in terms of background checks for potential candidates. And as at that time, the issue of, we didn't have NIDA as we have NIDA today, and DPR, data protection. And so, of course, most organizations may not necessarily have even asked for the consent of the employee. But you will find it in the offer letter where it is stated that, look, as part of our process, you would go through a background check, a due diligence process. And then I mean, this very particular example I wanted to give, there's been history of violence, as mentioned earlier, where this particular individual, when he gets violent, when emotions are triggered off, you find that the individual becomes very agitated and then begins to break bottles and begins to, it's tantrum throwing, but of course there has been history of impact on other staff where staff have had to be hospitalized and near miss cases. You don't want to go through that kind of situation. And another example I could immediately give was, look, I once had an interview where the candidates, the English, impeccable, Queen's English, outfit, everything that you would have that would tick the box. I mean, fantastic guy. You would want this guy, a smooth talker, you know, and that thing about intuition, which is where your data comes to play in the end, where you just feel, this is too smooth. There's just something not, I mean, for the HR practitioners who are here, Yemi, I'm sure you can bear me witness this. You just feel that there's something just not right. And this is where the role of due diligence came to play. This guy had been able to go through organizations and only with falsified certificates. And, you know, that rings a bell for you, because in the end, if I've been able to falsify my certificates to come into an organization, you can only begin to imagine what this person will do in terms of falsifying documents for the organization, in terms of misrepresentation, in terms of fraudulent tendencies. And Nixon, you are absolutely spot on when you mentioned that in the near future, one of the things that we would begin to see is predictive analytics. Based on the data that we have current, can we look into the future and say, what kind of hire will this person be eventually? I mean, that is going away from, I'm not saying the psychometrics, because organizations already do that to say, how would you perform? But there are certain behavioral patterns that may have been displayed in time past that are evidential, that may then be used to determine the future of how this person will come into the organization and play. So it helps that concept of, we all say it is not all that glitters that is goals, you may find that in essence, without due diligence, you may actually have endangered the organization. So I'll let all other panelists speak. I mean, this has been some of my experiences, and they've been quite intense, actually. It's when you're in the midst of it that you get to know how thick this can be. Thank you.
I mean, I think it was somebody that said the difference between your goals and objectives and reality is due diligence. And it's a great point you have raised about due diligence and how we've been able to navigate the very murky waters of trusting our intuition, and especially the thing we normally say in this area that, oh, I prayed about it before I made that decision, as against, being very factual when we make those decisions. I mean, that's very common here. And I'm going to give you a story that affected me personally, about somebody saying they prayed about a decision, they made it, and the guy made away with company property in the end. But we say, Yemi Fashion, I'd like to have your thoughts on this. And then we also, come back and talk about the role culture plays in all of this in this society. Mr. Yemi, great to have you.
Okay,
sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, BCI, for inviting me, and Mr. Dixon, thanks for setting the ball rolling with your masterpiece. Thanks a lot. Now, I'm not sure what else to add to what Kola, Kumbi, and Mary have all said, but there's one area that I think bothers me a bit when it comes to verification of credentials, especially through the process of recruitment. And that's the fact that not all organizations are conscious of the due diligence that we're talking about. And because we are buying talent and we are borrowing talent consistently across different sectors from one organization to another, what that means, therefore, is that because we don't have that standard consciousness of doing the right, proper due diligence, we are passing the risks on to other organizations. And from my own experience, it will amaze you the type of organizations where we got talent from. I'm not going to mention it, of course, where we got talent from in some previous life, and the individual had gotten to a senior manager level by the time we were recruiting him into the organization, and we decided to go through the entire process all over again. And we found out that the individual did not do what we call NYC around here, but he had spent 10 years in another reputable organization, and you will have expected that that particular organization will have gone through the whole 9 years of verification. So that is one area. I think that is one of the challenges I'll probably leave at the doorsteps of BCI. How do you raise the game of that consciousness across industries and sectors, because talents are moving from one organization to another? And if you now throw into the mix, if you throw in the issue of globalization, if you throw in what Mr. Nixon said around boundless talents moving around now, how do you then track the fact that one individual has been able to beat a particular system because of the lack of that consciousness, and therefore transiting into another organization? Because really, you can say that it's good money, good revenue for BCI, because company A should have done it, and then company B is going to do it again. But that is thinking or assuming that company A did it, therefore I don't have to do it. But that assumption is totally, totally wrong based on what we have experienced, right? So that is a challenge for me. The standardized consciousness of the need to verify, like Mary said, if you do it because of God fear, or like Rufai said, if you do it because of prayers or by the grace of God, it could come back to haunt the business or the individual in several unimaginable ways. So that's the challenge for me. How are we going to standardize that consciousness to say that, yeah, candidates, we are not second guessing them, but we just need to do what we are calling due diligence. Let me know that what you say you are is who and exactly what you are. That would be my challenge. Thank you.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much, because with that, your thought, we'll just segue into, the next question I'll ask. And please, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat box so we can also do well to do the due diligence of reading the questions out and ensuring we take the questions. But there's a saying in management speak that culture will eat strategy for breakfast. I want us to quickly talk about the role of culture in all of this, because that's a big elephant in the room we don't talk about enough. We'll go through the same cycle all over again. Mr. Olubode, you start, and we take it up from there. We go to Mary, and we come to Mrs. Adeoti, and to Mr. Yemi Fashion.
All right, thank you, Rufai. Please remember, take note that Barry Nixon is also part of the panel.
So sorry. So, okay, so maybe let's just cede the floor to Barry to start first on the topic of culture. So Barry, you could just start first, and Mr. Olubode will come after you. So, I mean, the aspect of culture, how culture affects, background check and all of that.
I find that your question is actually a very profound one. And in my case, as Kola referenced in his introduction, I actually have a very deep background in organization development. And obviously, organization development deals with culture at a substantial level. Culture is a very pervasive issue in organizations. And if the culture of an organization is that we believe that people are good, and so we take their word for what they say, then that kind of organization is setting themselves up for some of the people that the other panelists have talked about that have misrepresented themselves because that organization has a trusting culture. Now, I'm not suggesting that organizations need to be distrustful of people, but culture basically, to break it down at its simplest level, is this is how we do things here. And so it's very important that the culture of an organization embraces the notion that what we do here is, yes, we want to trust you because we want you to work for us for a very long time and be a contributor. But we also have a culture that we're going to verify information because it's in the organization's best interest to do that. And if, in fact, everything that you put down on your CV, on your employment application, what have you, is accurate, then all we did is just verify that it is in fact accurate. It's only the person that misrepresented something or exaggerated that has to be concerned about us verifying their information. So it's important that organizations start to embrace a culture of verification, and that they help their people understand, no, we're not going to dig into your private life. We're not going to invade your privacy. We're really going to verify the information that you provide. But your point that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day is a very important one, because unless we build this notion of due diligence, verification as part of our culture, then basically our managers, our supervisors will kind of put this aside and not think it's very important.
So I think you could just come in, Mr. Olubode, and just continue.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Rufai. Thank you, Barry, for that. I'm going to take it from the traditional culture, and then I'll bring it to corporate culture. One thing about background check is that it's always been a part of our culture traditionally all over Nigeria. In those days, it's very hard for you to get married in a family without them running some due diligence on the other family. They would ask questions. Where are they from? What type of family is this? Do they have an hereditary disease? Is anybody a criminal in that family? You know, even from time of old, there always been that sense of, are you sure who this person is? Is it who he claims to be? Like they always say, age does not show on the face. This guy that is always smiling and that looks cool, is it good to marry our daughter? You know, and aside from that, I know that in those days, we know almost everyone that live on our streets. And then when a new person moves in, people are trying to do like a due diligence. So who is this guy? Where has he come from? And all those things. So background check or due diligence or trying to get the fact about who somebody is has always been part of our system. And now coming to the corporate culture, I would sincerely say that things have changed over the years. I remembered when we started some 16, 17 years ago, and we sell our idea of background check to organizations, and you know the question is, oh, all right, does anybody do this in Nigeria? Are you sure we need this? And then part of the fear is that, oh, we hope if you check any of our staff, we won't find your report in one of the daily papers. You know, we see people asking that question. There was an organization that told us, no, we don't need to run any background check. In fact, I got to a place and they told me they are more into manufacturing. And they said we have like 600 oil-age vehicles. And in 6 months, they have turned over almost all the drivers. And they said, if anyone misbehaves, we just get another one. And then I tell them the cost of the turnover, you running over the recruitment process all over again. And then, of course, we had another complaint that we worked for, that one of the drivers, there's another oil complaint, one of the drivers actually went off with the vehicle of the organization. And interestingly, they searched for him for several years and they could not locate him or the vehicle. But unfortunately for the guy, he moved to one of our other clients and he was going to get a job for them. And of course, the other client told us to run background check on him, and we had to go to declare to the customer or his employers that he ran away with their vehicles. And that was how they got to know where he was, you know. So what I'm saying in essence is that things have changed from how it was some 17 years ago when we started to now that organizations, one of the things we have enjoyed so much in BCI had been the word of mouth and the referral. It's one organization always telling the other, oh, you need to make background check your culture. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. You're making life so easy for us, you know. So I can tell you that corporately, the culture is changing, even though we know that we still have lots of complaints out there that are yet not embraced background check as a policy issue. But gradually we are getting there. And I think Yemi asked the question, what BCI is doing to make sure that we ensure that more organizations are running background check. This is one of the venues to create awareness like this, make people know more of what background check is all about and what we do. And even almost on a daily basis now, we run campaigns and press releases in newspapers just to make people know what we're doing. We go on radios, we're on social media. So we are doing everything to enlighten people on the importance of doing background check, whether in the corporate setting or even in the domestic setting. So thank you, Rufai. Let me stop there for now.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Let's take Mary's view on this, and then once you're done, Mary, we could just have Mrs. Adeoti just to come in, and it's Fashion who comes in the end, so that we don't just stop the flow of thoughts. Please still send your questions to me via the chat. I'm seeing the questions. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so I'm actually learning quite a lot from my co-panelists on this meeting. So it's an interesting one. And then when we talk about culture now, I like the fact that Kola had to take it from the part of our traditions where before you get married, really, a lot of background check is done. In fact, when I got married to my husband, it was crazy. The background check was something else to a point. To a point, and of course, sometimes it depends on the kind of family as well. To a point, somebody had to ask them, the person she's getting married to, how many heads does he have? This is a master's degree holder we're talking about. So you come on, all of these issues will show up. Now, bringing it down to background check in the place of employment and in place of who you put in your home to look after your kids, to drive you, and all of those. You need to bring in those cultural attitudes into background check. The way you are able to look at those indices in terms of marriage is the same thing that should go on when you're trying to hire. So you have a nanny says, I have worked here. The guy in that house always looked at me somehow. That's why I left. The onus is on you to do your checks and call the previous employer of that nanny, prospective nanny, to say, how was this person? You need to ask those very serious questions. I've had a personal experience in that line where I gave somebody a job, one for my office and one for the home. The one for the office resumed on Monday. The one for the home didn't turn up. And I put a call through to her. It was an agency that did the recruitment, by the way. And the one for the home didn't turn up. I had to put a call through to her on a Tuesday. And she says, oh, ma, sorry. I went to do my hair when I need to be ready. I mean, what has got you? I said, you are for my house, not for the office. He says, I know. Bottom line, she showed up the very next Wednesday, somebody that was supposed to resume work on Monday, shows up on Wednesday with this long Peruvian hair. Now, in the course of your interview with this person, if certain questions wasn't asked, the latest appearance and all that delay should be a red flag for you. And then you need to implement that culture. Just bring it up and ask the find out why that person truly left. And that story told whether it is true. That's one. And then in our culture, when somebody steals a fowl in the Igbo culture, it is a big crime. Stealing a cock, hen, chicken. If your parents stole a chicken in the days of yore, it will still affect the children of that man today. You won't get married. There's a stigma attached to theft. So in terms of hiring, you go down to that traditional way of, theft is in their blood. Theft is in their lineage. We know that these are not, it's not biologically proven, but it helps you. It really helps you to be able to gauge who you are employing. The background says a lot about the person, but we also need to be careful in the sense that the sins of the parents, that the father stole chicken many years ago, he could have a child that is totally, very saintly and doesn't pick from anybody. So now this is where BCI comes in to now really do a proper check, of a formal check to say where he worked before, where she worked before. Has there been any incident of theft? Has there been any incident of drunkenness? Has there been any incident of violence and all of those? So adopting that traditional metrics to background check is very important. Thirdly, I will take it now, delve into the corporate attitude or culture, corporate culture. We also cannot overlook the culture of corruption in our country. I mean, corruption is everywhere, but other countries' corruptions tend to be more positive corruption, where you see what government is doing for the people. But here we have a corruption that is so negative that it upticks every year, every month, every season, that children are born into a system that shows them corruption. Now, even in background checks, the corrupt system won't let you also get facts in your background check mechanisms. So when you go to check out this nanny or this driver or this employee, they've also gone, person comes, this is what you tell them. You will find out that when you go, what Mr. A told you about this person is what Mr. B told you about this person, is what Mr. C tells you about one individual. There is no way everybody will say the same thing about that person. There must be somebody who will tell you the true content of the person's character. You must have diverse, and that's where emotional check. So culture, in the sense of corporate culture, you have organizations that say our core values are excellence, all sorts, excellence,
integrity,
what do I call it? Accountability, transparency, and all of those. Sometimes you end up that these are just in written forms and doesn't translate to the core values of that organization. And when that happens, you will also find that those organizations in hiring, all that excellence, transparency, accountability are also not found in their due process when they are hiring. So it becomes a problem that you cannot divulge your culture, your way of life, your traditional.
Right. I think we're struggling a little bit with Mary's connection. If we can just take Mrs. Adeoti.
Thank you, Rufai. I was actually enjoying the discourse and the direction in which Mary was going. I'm not even too sure how much to add, even though I'm wondering, yes, when Kola mentioned that our culture ordinarily was, if you're getting married, they would go check what is the history in that family. Increasingly, I'm beginning to see that those lines are becoming blurred. And maybe it's from the angle from which I have been experiencing it. There's this unspoken culture of don't question me, accept it just like that. This is what it is, and what it is may not be what is underneath. As we continually experience, particularly in businesses and in environments where you have to recruit somebody who is a family member, who is a relative, who is a family friend, you get the sense that why are you going through, and I'm using the word process this time around, because for every organization or for every individual, there are values that you have, and underneath those values, which was what Mary was saying, there should be a process that you have put in place that acts as a sieve for testing all that you have said that you are, that you want to be, or you're aspiring to be. And so if I'm bringing, I bring a family friend So I may know you from afar. Maybe the last time I saw that person was childhood. 10 years have gone down the line, 15, 20 years have gone down the line. I don't know who you have become. Why shouldn't I, by my process, because we used to live in the same neighborhood, and say it doesn't matter, your father, your mother, I mean, that's not the way it is, and then not take through that process. So again, I think, yes, we have culture, and particularly down in this environment, particularly in the Yoruba land, the culture of not looking at the elder in the eye, of not being spoken until you're spoken to. These things actually sieve back into the way we run organizations, even into the way we run the homes. So to that extent, you are careful not to want to rock the boat. But experiences are showing us daily. We've mentioned the issue of corruption. And I mean, I know of an instance where the security man that was employed within a space of 2-3 weeks or so was the one who killed the owner of the house, you know. And if the referral came, and I've seen the issue of referral in the chat box, referral came from another gateman who is the gateman of another friend who has worked with that person for 10 years. So what? Does that take away the value of me taking everything, like I mentioned, of creating a process and saying that I will be diligent in every contact, every hiring that I do to ensure that what I have is the best through it's a sieve, as it were. So yes, we see the culture, but we must ask ourselves one deep question. How is this culture serving my value or the value of the organization? As a private individual, does this culture serve my value? If I'm hiring a nanny, if I'm hiring a driver, I'm hiring, in the organization, it's the same. How does this serve the value of the organization ultimately? So I believe that whilst you may have culture, whilst you don't want to, you must ask ourselves deep questions, the roles that this culture play. Is it really culture, or it's element of stupidity at work? Those are things that we need to be able to differentiate and not ask yourself. I mean, whilst we're talking about due diligence, I've had an instance where I recruited a nanny, and if I was just looking by facial, she looks good, she looks neat, she's fantastic, she's all that, but she was HIV positive. And was I going to put my entire family at risk? And that's why I said that you have to ask yourself, what is your value? Am I playing culture at the expense of stupidity? What risk am I? What is the risk here? Should be the deep down question. And we must eliminate that risk with the available processes to us. Thank you.
I mean, very, very apt point made. I think it's also the Yoruba culture that have a saying that, I mean, you only know yourself, but you don't know who is after you. So you have to be very careful. And just something to laugh about. Is there any one Nigerian politician that will really pass a background screening test? If we subject them to it. So Yemi Fashion will like you come in there. But truthfully and honestly, isn't it time we had background screening tests for all politicians? All of them running. Is there anyone that will really pass if we have those background screening tests for them?
Well, they don't need background checks. Their own is very open. I mean, you can see.
Okay, two additional perspectives from my side, just two additional. And that's to say that if we are relating culture to how we bring in employees into the organization, let's not forget that the organization itself is still possibly on a culture journey. Culture might not have been fully formed. And at the point when we are bringing in new entrants into the organization, the gatekeepers must be very careful. Before we even start talking to BCI to go check the credentials, can we do some basic things around culture fit? So at the point of recruitment into the organization, we are not, or we should not, only look at the technical competencies of the individuals that we are bringing into the organization. We should also have some sort of scientific ways to look at the culture fit of that individual so that it doesn't become a round hole or a round peg in a square hole. But there are a couple of ways, a couple of tools that we can actually deploy at that point of entry to say, will this individual pass our integrity test, our excellence, like Mary was rolling out the values? We need to find out to a large extent. And I must say that there is no perfect tool that will give you a 10 over 10, right? At that point, to say that, oh, this individual is a culture fit. At best, maybe you get a 6 or a 7. But that's better than doing nothing at all and just concentrating on the technical ability to do the job. The other side of the equation, which is culture, which is behavior, which is fit in terms of the DNA of the organization, it's so important. Because if that is missing, it is not only impacting that one individual we have brought into the organization, it's probably going to be impacting other people, especially when that individual is at a leadership position. Because culture is leadership and leadership is culture. So if you bring in people who are misfits from a culture perspective into the organization, we are likely to be seeing disgruntled employees or team members and maybe high attrition and all that. So a little bit needs to be done to check the culture fit at the point of entry. That's number one. Number two thing for me is, I like the way Barry described culture. It's what's in our DNA. It is how we do things here. It is not the things we write on the walls when you come into the organization and you have first value on the first floor, second value on the third floor. No, that's not culture. Culture is really what people see, especially how leaders behave in the organization. Where I'm going therefore is this. If, for instance, the line manager who's hiring and human resources have already a job description and a process to follow in terms of bringing in employees into the organization, but you get a small note from chairman or small note from the MD or from the ED and say, that's my candidate. And we therefore circumvent process. Because of that individual, we are already circumventing culture. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone if, for instance, therefore, that particular candidate or employee is not a fit for the organization. What I'm saying is that culture is how we do things here, and not just how we do things, but how we do things consistently. How we do it in operations, how we do it in accounting, how we do it in the behaviors of leadership, how we do it in human resources as well. By the time someone is coming to an organization and we are thinking of reward that is not consistent with practice, and the individuals themselves know that, oh, this is how it was done when I was coming in, we're already sort of empowering them to be a misfit for the organization. So two things important for me from a culture perspective. One is, how do we bring in people into our organizations? Are we just looking at technical competencies, or are we also looking at culture fit? And also, is the consistency with which leadership in the organization sends the message of culture on a daily basis, and it should permeate the entire organization. Those would be my additions. Thank you.
I mean, very, very apt additions, I must say. And like all of you have said it all, culture permeates through every area of our life. It's that sort of that movement, from the area of higher concentration to lower concentration in our national lives. And I just hope INEC can have this kind of culture in picking political candidates. Maybe our country will be a whole lot better. Because it's just a culture misfit, all of this funny guys called politicians are doing. But we've got a couple of questions, and let's quickly just answer them. somebody is talking about should members of people you're about to employ be judged by what they put online? And when I saw the question, I laughed a bit because I was working with a company recently on the needs to be able to start listing somebody's online profile as digital assets and to be able to list their online password in their will so that somebody else can take over their digital assets when they're gone. So when somebody's asking that question, of course, what you write online is you. We live in a digital world. It's a digital asset. In fact, there are provisions now that you put your online password for your Twitter, Facebook, and the likes in your will so that when you die, people can continue with your digital assets. So very, very, very important insight there. We also have many other questions, but you can still take a stab at that. I'll come to you, Mr. Olugbodi. Maybe you can still talk a little bit about that. And I'll also, a lot of people are saying insightful lecture, value system, good narrative, corruption, and all of that, database. Somebody put an interesting insight here, talked about credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-orientation moves. I mean, very important question. Somebody talked about referral and word of mouth. But in just summary, I think you could tackle that question, the online and offline, interaction as regards background check and why people should understand that what they put out there is an extension of them. And maybe if you just take that on, then we take other speakers on that, then we start to wrap up things because time is tissue, as they say.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sofa. Well, BCI, we don't really use social media as a way of judging somebody's character or behavior, because one thing we've discovered about social media is that everybody wants to paint a larger than life picture. Everybody wants to talk like saints and everything. Of course, we know that once in a while, some can't just hide their true personality on social media, but whether we like it or not, people's social media handles have become part of ways of assessing them, of really finding out about their personality, I remembered maybe one or two of the occasions that we did a very deep due diligence on somebody that was going to be the CEO of an organization. At that time, we actually had to check everything that we could find out about him, what his friends say about him, what neighbors say about him, and of course, part of what we needed to do was to check some of his comments and or whatever on the social media. And we discovered that he's always talking about obscene things. He's always talking about nudity. He's always talking about those things. Very brilliant man, educationally brilliant. He's worked in wonderful places, but unfortunately,
I think I know the man.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether he's the one but unfortunately, we never thought that checking out how he speaks across social media was going to be an issue, but exactly that was what really stood against him, because at the point, two of them were shortlisted. It was just two. I think it was then that they asked us to do something much more deeper than what we have done before, And interestingly, one of the friends that we interviewed corroborated what we saw on social media. He said, very good man, very whatever, but he loves women very, very much. He said, provided there are not going to be a lot of ladies working in that place where it's going to be employed, Of course, we're always very objective. We give reports the way we get them. And unfortunately, he lost the job. But I think people are getting smarter now on social media because they know that recruiters check them out. those families of those you want to marry, they check you out on social media and everything. So I'm seeing people are getting smarter what they post and the things they write about. So social media may not be the best way to get the true personality of a person, but in case you're going to do that, try to corroborate with other tools and solutions that we make use of in BCI.
Thank you so much for that. Maybe we'll just take.
Hello, Rufai. Mrs. Kumbi Adiuti, she actually has another meeting now. So I feel maybe we need to start thereof.
Yeah, so I think we just take the last words from William, and we should wrap things up really, because so that we don't stretch it beyond time. Like they say, brevity is the soul of wit. Yeah.
I think he's right that people are getting the message that employers are looking at it, so they are trying to clean up their act. However, my perspective is, one of the, I'll call it the beauties, I guess it depends on your perspective, about social media and online. Whatever you put online never really goes away. So if you had a history of doing something illegal, using drugs or being an alcoholic or whatever, and you posted those pictures, they're still there. Now, obviously, employers have to be very careful about how they look at information and not to do anything nefarious. But in some cases, you can't hide it. So I remember some time back, someone did a study on LinkedIn, and I'm not aware how much LinkedIn is used in Nigeria, but here in the US, it's used tremendously. And something like 40 to 50% of the backgrounds on LinkedIn in terms of education, credentials, experience were actually exaggerated. Somebody went through and did the research. And so it's there. And so again, if it's in your past, you exaggerated your background, it raises a question as to what you'll do in the future. So I think there is some viability to still using social media. And the reality is, and I hate to say it this way, but some people seem to lose their mind when they go online. And, you got all these different mediums, TikTok and Instagram, and I'm not even up to speed on all of them, but they put things there that it's like, I can't believe they did that. So, I think it is relevance, but I think Kola said something that's very important, is you need to use that and then check other information to see if you can verify it and validate it. But I would not dismiss using social media because it gives you a glimpse into a person that you may not get through other assessment tools.
Thank you to each and every one of you for your time. So sorry, Mary, that we couldn't come back to you again after you had a cut there. Thank you so much, Ms. Adioti, for your time. Thank you so much, Mr. Fashion. Thank you so much, Mary, for your time. Thank you so much, Mr. William Nixon, for joining us all the way from Atlanta. Thank you so much, Mr. Kola Olubudi. And thank you so much, everybody, for making our time to talking to us this evening. Thank you so much. I'm sure you've learned one or two very insightful things. If I didn't take your questions, I truly apologize for that because of time constraint. Thank you. And that's about it for the session today. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Rufai. I'm so sure it's really been an enlightening session. Sorry, I took over from the MC so that we can rush things so soon. Now I'm going to call on the chairman of Background Check International in person of Mr. Tunji Olugbodi. Don't ask me why the surname sound the same. I've known him for quite a while. All right, Mr. Tunji Olugbodi, can we have your remark?
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. There's really not much to say after such an interesting encounter. I've thoroughly enjoyed all the interventions, all the submissions. It looks like there's even much more robust recommendations in the chat area than even what the panelists have been venturing. So what this tells me is that first, it looks like the issues that are related to due diligence as far as background check is concerned is not only germane and relevant, but continues to be an emerging area. I don't think we can fully exploit it in one fell swoop. Personally, what I take away from this whole conversation is twofold. One is that any company, any organization, or maybe even individual, but especially organizations that really want to grow and want to be assured of the trajectory for success, they have to be reassured by the quality of the resource that they have access to. And this speaks to the fact that companies are more intent and focused on purpose today than profit. Purpose has a lot more that it encompasses. It also has to do with, if you like, the social well-being and the welfare of their own team, the communities where they operate, and so on and so forth. So I've really enjoyed the cultural dimension to the discussions that we've had this afternoon. The second, obviously, I think is what is obvious, that BCI plays a very unique role in this industry. And I remember, about 17 years ago when the idea was muted, the only reason why I'm on board, and like Ola was saying, if our surname looks the same, is that I've become, if you like, the sounding board for any kind of ideas that any to-be serial entrepreneur wants to involve himself in. And what got me attracted was the fact that there was a huge originality, if you like, authenticity in what they were proposing to do. At that point, checking backgrounds, doing due diligence didn't look like what could fly. It's pretty much like when bottled water started, and nobody ever thought that the day will come when everybody will be paying premium to have access to bottled water. So here we are 16 years later, and it still looks like a very interesting area that still continues to emerge very strongly in the business horizon in Nigeria and all around the globe. That said, I'd just like to thank everyone that has made this a huge success. Being the very first, I've always encouraged the organization to be in the forefront of thought leadership. Kola has spoken many times in the past about Barry Nixon, and we are very, very glad that you were able to make it and to provide that seminal, make that seminal presentation that you made today, Barry. Thank you very much. Yemifa Sheon, we thank you very much, and very soon we'll make Glow home too. Maybe we'll be able to do things together. Mrs. Ukoku, I think the first time I watched you was on a TV program, where you were talking about what you do. And it just occurred to me that there are so many areas that provide very interesting areas of intervention that where we can all make meaning in our different communities. Mrs. Adeoti, thank you very much for being here. And was that Mrs. or Mr. Adeoti? And Rufai Osheni, my brother forever, one of those very nice voices that we used to hear on radio, who has now ported to TV. It's good to have you here to make this a reality. I also spotted a few other directors of BCI here, Barrister Ade Adeniji. I'm not sure if I saw Tadio Gido, Mrs. Oshoma, the Deputy MD, and indeed the entire staff of BCI. But I think much more important, our distinguished guests. At the peak of this, I saw almost 100 people who attended this, which is quite unique, I tell you, in this age and time. Thank you all for your insight, for your attendance, and let's keep the conversation around this going. our country is in dire straits. There's no doubt about that. We are in a very strong position where, issues around security, issues around safety remain a big challenge that we need to continue to, have narratives around, and we continue to have different kinds of opinions, that we need to see how we can make things better. At the end of the day, it has to be that we're able to speak truth to leadership, because as far as I'm concerned, all of these issues have to do with the quality and the caliber of leadership that we have. Like somebody was joking, maybe it's time we started doing due diligence on the background of politicians and people who want to assume positions of responsibility in the leadership sphere. All said, thank you very much for a wonderful afternoon that spilled into evening. I hope that sometime in the near future, we'll be able to make this conversation, actually graduate this conversation into new areas of overtures, and we can then look at new insights that can help us to either leapfrog our businesses or that can make our communities and environments better, more safe and more secure. Whichever way it is, I wish you all the best, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the evening. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, TJ. In rounding off, I want to thank everybody, just like TJ have said. They have sent the link, for the recording of this program. It's on YouTube. I've put it in the chat room. You can always check it there. And of course, this is the flagship, and we ensure, like Sean Fashion said, would keep on even this awareness drive to ensure that everyone gets to know more about the background check. And our prayer and hope in BCI is that it's going to become a cultural issue in corporate Nigeria. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you. And we hope next time when we invite you, you will yet join us again. Kumbi, thank you. Yemi, thank you. Mary, thank you. Rufai, thank you. Much more than anything, Barry Nixon, thank you very much for joining us. Everyone, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Barry. It's really nice having you here.
Cole, it was my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity. And of course, good working with you again. Hope we can do it again. Yeah.
I'll definitely call you back very soon.
All right. And thank you so much to the other panelists. I learned a lot from them. This is a learning journey, and it was really good for me.
That's good, Barry. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks for inviting me.
Nice to have you around. I really appreciate your coming here, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir. Eshe, sir.
You are blessed.
Sake, congrats, sir. We'll talk later, yeah?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Mary, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. And a special thanks to Barry. Your presentation is the most insightful I've seen in recent times. It's quite well researched, well thoughtful, and heavily insightful. And I must thank you especially. I hope we do get a copy of your presentation. Thank you so much for your time. And thanks to all the panelists. And my brother, Kola, thank you. Let's do this again.
All right, Mary. Thank you so much. Mr. Onuko, thank you so much. So seeing you here.
Thank you, Kola. Apologies, I couldn't start with you. I had another meeting somewhere. Wow. But I felt that it's something worth joining. Congratulations.
I really appreciate your presence, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kola.
All right, Mr. Falola. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, let's take the conversation from here, and let's talk offline. Yes. Yeah.
All right.
We'll talk
Thanks,
offline later. Sir.
Bye now.
No problem.
All right, Barry. Bye. Enjoy the rest of your day. Uncle Temple, nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you, sir. I'm happy to be part of the program, sir.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So nice to have you.
Thank you, sir.
So nice. Mrs. Obuna.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Mr. Kola.
Thank you so much, Sister Titi. Nice to have you here. Really appreciate.
We bless God. I learned a lot. We'll talk later. Bless you, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Bye. Uncle Temple Boyo, how are you, sir? Thank you, everyone. Tony, nice to have you around. Thank you.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Eshe, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats,
all right.
Dear.
All right, my wife also is somewhere here. Thank you so much, there.
Congratulations, dear.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations, sir.
Hey, Sheo, thank you so much. How are my people in Coventry?
We are all good. We are all doing well. I really enjoyed the talk anyway. And then I wanted to ask questions, but I said, let me just allow.
So you can always ask me offline. I will answer your questions any day.
Yeah. Actually, the question is there a portal in which in Nigeria you record all incidences and things like that? So that it's easy for background check, like if somebody has committed a fraud in a bank or in somewhere, or a house girl has stolen, is there a portal where all these things are even kept, that it can be easily accessed? Just like here in UK, there's a portal that there will be a referencing background check that you can always go and do your DBS. We call it DBS, and everything will be seen within the DBS, whatever crime or whatever. So is there a portal, or is there any plan of developing this towards achieving that system?
All right, thank you, Shil. Number one, there's no portal like that. Number two, thank you for sharing the idea. Very soon the portal will come up.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
It's a good thing that you are doing, and God will continue to expand your post.
Thank you, amen and amen. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Adora, nice to have you here. Hello, Adora.
Okay. Congratulations, sir.
Doctor, nice to have you here too, Dr. Babata.
Yes, sir.
Today.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem, sir. And God will enlarge the company and the work in Jesus' name, sir.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
And congratulations to all the families of BCI.
I say thank you on behalf of every one of them.
It is well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is it Mr. or Mrs. Alao? Abimbola Alao? You talked about background check on your students. If you need BCI assistance, we will gladly do that for you. Mrs. Olugaza, thank you for coming. So nice to have you here.
My pleasure, sir. I had a very nice time. Thank you so much. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
More your elbows.
Amen.
Have a of BCI from.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Auntie Tokubo, nice to see you here, ma. Auntie Tokubo Kende, I really appreciate your joining us, ma.
I have been in meetings.
Okay, ma.
That's why. So I just said, let me squeeze myself in.
It's very okay, ma. I'll send the YouTube link for it. I'll send it to your WhatsApp, ma.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
You'll get all on LinkedIn.
Okay.
My regards to Prof. Ma.
God bless you.
All right, ma. Thank you so much.
It all went well.
We had a very nice time. Very wonderful time.
So I feel bad that I missed it,
No, you get the full thing on
YouTube.
Okay.
Because I actually looked forward to being there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So grateful. Amen. Amen. Eshima.
Pleasure.
Okay, ma.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye for now.
Bye, ma.
Bye.
Okay, ma. Bye, auntie. Why have I not? Mr. Windapo, nice to have you around. Why have I missed? Dapo Joe, nice to have you here also. I just came across your name now. Hello, Dapo. And then Adeyeye, I don't know which Adeyeye is this, but thank you so much for coming on board also. Thank you, everyone. And to the BCI family, thank you, every one of you, for the good jobs you do. You've brought us this far. And I know we are all going further than this by God's grace. Thank you, every one of you in BCI. I guess most of us are the ones still remaining in the house. All right. Okay. Adora, are you anyway by your phone or your laptop? Adora? It will be so nice to hear your voice. Thank you, everyone. All right. So I guess it's time for us to take a leave. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Rabi, nice to have you here too, sir. Thank you very much. I don't know whether this is Teju or Teju's dad. Thank you so much for being here, sir. We appreciate you. Ayomide, congratulations. You are the one that ran around to make this happen. Thank you very much. Thank you for the good work. And for your team that supported you also. Thank you, every one of you. I appreciate you all. Sorry, who is Donyo Seni? Donyo Seni? All right. Okay, everyone, so nice to have you. I'll be signing off also now. Still got some other meetings lined up for today. All right, thank you, everyone. God bless you all. God bless you all. Yeah, Mo, nice to see your face. Your mic is muted.
Sir. Sorry, fine, very fine, sir. Sorry, I came in late. I was in training.
Abio, well, at least nice to see your face eventually.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, we had a nice session, and
yeah,
it's on YouTube. I will share the link with you.
That would be great, sir. That would be great. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Yemi. Thank you so much.
Bye, sir.
All right, bye.
You need to put this in the link.
Okay. Olubayo Windapo, nice to have you. If you can hear me. Bide Mifani, nice to have you here from Ilorin. All right, bye everyone. We'll have a nice day, everybody. Let me see that way.